Selling for non-sellers. Maybe you're an introvert or you have no sales training. These are the things that you want to know prior to starting your journey. Now, most people will tell you, and most programs online, they're going to tell you where to sell. You're going to go to skilled nursing facilities. You're going to go to assisted living facilities. But they don't tell you the personal traits that you're going to need to develop on your own as a sales representative. And I call it throwing them to the sharks. If you send somebody with no sales skills whatsoever out there, they are not going to turn over referrals. So that's what this video is for, is to try and help you understand what personal skills that you need to develop. Now, in my opinion, the approach to selling is arguably more important than where you're actually selling. You got to make sure that you have those skills and you know how to speak to people. When I first started out, I had no sales skills. I was a big introvert. I didn't think there was any way I could stand up there and do a presentation in front of people. You know, I was always in business, but I was never on the sales side of things. So that's something that I had to learn when I started my agency. And to be honest with you, I actually hated selling to people until I learned how to do it authentically. And the way I did that was to 100% believe in what I was saying and what I was selling. I had to believe in my services in order to be able to sell them, because if you're just selling them, you know, a boat down the river, they're not going to go for it. They see through that. So if you're not honest and sincere, they are 100% going to see through that, and they're going to go to the next company. So make sure you have your service dialed in and you actually believe in your service. Another thing I wanted to mention is your car is a university on wheels. Now, I have no formal education, no college degree, and what I did was I actually worked up north in Canada and I was doing, 10-hour road trips. So what I would do is I would listen to audiobooks and podcasts. It is incredible the amount of information that's out there, and I essentially got my MBA from podcasts and from audiobooks. So I highly recommend, wherever you're going, you start listening to podcasts related to where you're at in your journey. Maybe you're having trouble selling, so you want to make sure that you're basically listening to podcasts on how to sell and how to improve yourself. Right now, even at the stage I'm at, we're multi-million-dollar, but I want to get to the next level. So I am reading books on scaling up an agency and scaling, to 10, 20 million. So make sure that you are leveraging your time and learning. And if you're wondering, some of the books I recommend, the number one for people who are new to sales is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It is an incredible book. I've read it probably 4 or 5 times now, and that is going to give you the most solid base for selling. And I would say for more advanced methods, you might want to read Influence by Robert Cialdini or Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's a negotiation tactics book. Influence is basically the psychology of selling. Very, very interesting. It's just kind of like How to Win Friends and Influence People, but just more advanced stages. So also, in my opinion, selling in home care, it's 2 main things that you have to worry about. Number 1 is going to be exposure. So you have to be out there in front of people. You don't want to be pushy or salesy, but you have to be out there in the community at networking events, at assisted living facility events. You want to make sure that you're getting in front of people without being pushy. So exposure is the number 1. If nobody knows who you are or sees you around, they're not going to send referrals your way. And the second is going to be backing up your claims. So when you're out there selling, you're going to be telling them what you're doing for service. You make sure that you 100% back that up at all costs, because as soon as that trust's broken, they are not going to send referrals your way anymore. So make sure that your service delivery is dialed in and you are actually doing what you promise. Now, I'm going to go through 15 of the top pointers that you should know. The first is confidence. You need to be the expert. So when you're selling, especially to the more affluent clientele, you need to make it known that you're the expert in the industry. You should be doing, CEU events. Those are continuing education units. It shows that you have an expertise. You need to understand your service really well. You need to engage with people. If you're not engaging with people, they are going to question your confidence. So get in front of people, open up your chest, open up your shoulders, talk to them face to face, make eye contact, and engage with them. You also want to speak up. You notice my voice when I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking up. I'm trying to make sure that what I'm telling you is resonating with you. So your confidence, it will compound over time. Even if you're fearful now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be fearful a year down the road. So as you get out there and do it more and more, even you'll notice in the first week or two after speaking to people, your confidence is slowly going to build. Another is tonality. So what is tonality? It's the pitch of your voice and how it sounds. So what you want to do is you want to emphasize certain words. You'll notice that as I'm speaking to you, my pitch changes. Now, I'm not a master at this. This goes really, really in depth, but you have to know the difference between, speaking up or else if you're talking very low like this, right? It has a totally different sound and connotation to it. So some of the things that you can do, you can adjust your pitch, you can adjust your volume, and you can adjust your inflection. But another thing is you can actually adjust your pacing as well. So that's your speed, your rhythm, the pauses in between what you're saying. So when you say, we have a discharge package that we have 100% success rate with, as opposed to, we have a discharge package that actually has a 100% success rate. You see the difference in tonality there? And next, you want to empathize and you want to validate their emotions. Now, people in the home care industry, when they come to you, they're stressed out, they're overwhelmed, they're emotional. So you want to be empathetic and you want to listen to them and you want to feed into their emotions. And one of the ways that you can do that is simply by listening. Make sure that they know that you're listening. You're not preoccupied. You're not on your phone. You're not looking off in the corner. You're listening to them. You're making eye contact with them. That's going to help you empathize and validate that emotion. And another way to empathize is to relate a personal story. So with personal stories, if you're working in the home care industry for a long time, or maybe you were in another healthcare industry before that, try and relate a personal story of yours to their story and show how it's similar and how you've overcome some of the obstacles. That's a great way to connect and empathize. Now another one is body language. This one is crazy important and nobody understands that. So there's a formula. It's the 55, 38, 7. I know, weird numbers. I didn't make them up. But what they're saying is that to resonate with people, 7% of it is done with words. Only 7% is done by what I'm saying. 38% is voice and tone, how I'm talking to you. And 55%, the lion's share of it, is actually body language. So you want to make sure you're opening up your chest and arms, you're smiling, you're gesturing with your arms and your hands. You want to make eye contact. Doing all of these things are actually more important than what you're actually saying. Now the next is the talking to listening ratio. This one's tough for me because I like to talk all the time, but we use the 80-20 rule. So you should be listening 80% of the time and you should be talking only 20% of the time. And as everybody always says, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And the next one is going to be, you have to be interested in other people. If you're just going through the motions and you're not actually interested in what they're saying, they are absolutely going to sense that. So you want to ask them questions about themselves, about their parents, about their loved ones, about their goals. So you want to make sure that you are digging deep and basically forming that emotional connection with them. And one of the main things that I would say with that is remember to say their name. Make sure you say the right name, but remember their name and also say it quite frequently. You don't want to overdo it, but I always even sign off my email with, thanks Tim, or, thanks Tom, Dave, whatever. And just that little name resonation. People love hearing their own name. And in addition to that, you want to be helpful and you want to add value. So you can offer to do small things, without any expectation in return. So that might be like they're not the right fit for your services, but you can help them connect with a provider. So be helpful in that sense. And we've talked about this next one before, but don't be too pushy. Now in home care, clients are stressed, they're overwhelmed. They aren't looking for a sales representative. They're looking for somebody to understand their situation. So you do not want to push them. I mean, if they're a high need, high level care, they will need services. You don't need to push that on them. And if you do push that on them, that tends to get very short-term clients, low-hour clients. So do not be pushy. One of the other things that I always say is put in the reps. Now, when I first started, I was not a salesperson. I was an introvert. I didn't like talking in front of people. And what I did was I created a really good slideshow presentation. And what I did with that was I practiced it probably 10 to 15 times. I nailed it. I knew what was on every slide. So when I went in there, it was almost like second nature. It was some pleasantries to start off with. Hey, how's it going? I'm Justin. And then I jumped into the slideshow. And if I did forget, there's a reminder right there. So being prepared and putting in the reps is super, super important, especially if you're new to selling. And another thing you want to do is knowing how to handle the common objections. Now, you'll get the same objections all the time. We offer VIP services, so a common objection we get is obviously pricing. People can't swallow the pricing, so we know that objection's coming. So my team is trained at a high level to be able to handle and reverse that objection, so we put their mind at ease. So make sure you know what common objections your agency's getting, and make sure your team is trained exactly how to handle those. And the next is standing out from the crowd. Now you want to be remembered, but not for anything ridiculous. And for me, it was quite easy. I moved down from Canada, already had this beard. I had a Canadian accent when I first moved down. So it was pretty easy for me to stand out, especially since, the typical home care agency owners, they're a little bit older than I am. And so I was a young guy, a beard from a different country. So it was pretty easy for me to stand out. So after standing out from the crowd, you want to be authentic and you want to be sincere. And some of the ways to do this are to tell stories that are relevant, personal, and meaningful to the topic of conversation. And one that should be common sense that's absolutely not is being honest. There's so many home care agencies in my area that promised clients the world. We go in there, we be 100% honest. We let them know that there's staffing issues. We talk to them about a plan B. We be totally upfront and honest with them, and they appreciate that. Even though this other company promised them the world, they don't believe them because they're not being honest. So make sure the radical transparency is number one. And another one is to smile. Make sure that you smile. That's another underrated thing. I'm not that great at it. I can't keep a smile when I'm talking all the time, but I can when I'm out marketing. So just so you know, 73% of Americans are more apt to trust someone who smiles. And why is that? Well, it's because it lifts spirits and it reinforces happiness. And one of the other things it does, you come across as more trustworthy when you're smiling. So make sure that you have a smile on your face when you're out marketing to clients or referral sources. Deep relationships is another one. So you want to make sure that with your referral sources, you're going in deep on those relationships. You don't want that surface level. Think of your best friend. Think of your best friend versus somebody you've met twice. Who are you more apt to give a referral to? Obviously, you have more trust and more loyalty to your best friend, so you're going to be giving the referrals that way. So the deeper you can go in those relationships and form almost friendships is the best way to do it. And what that does is it helps feel more secure and connected. It builds trust, and like I said before, it increases loyalty. So make sure you're fostering those deep connections. The next is going to be the clothing you wear. So you want to dress the part. So first impressions actually happen within seconds of meeting. So appearance, it definitely matters. And what you want to do, you want to go mostly conservative clothing, nothing loud. You don't want to take the attention away from what you're doing, but you want to be conservative. You want to look good. You want to look clean. And it's definitely safer to go more formal than underdressed. So if you're not sure what to wear, lean towards the formal side just in case. One of the other things that I do that really helps is having consistency in our clothing across the brand. So we have a certain thing. We have Under Armour zip-ups, quarter zips that we use, and I have all the marketing reps wear those out so that we have consistency. So when all of our marketing reps are at different places, when I'm out there at an event with them, we all have the same clothing on, so we have that consistency, and people start to resonate with that, and they start to see those shirts, and they're like, oh, well, Justin's company is here. So make sure that you keep that consistency. It's much more important than you think. Another one is respecting people's time and their social cues. So when you're running around talking to social workers, they are super busy people, and if they're not in their office, chances are that they're out running around doing something and they're too busy to talk to you. So make sure you realize that. You can jump in there, drop off some brochures and say, okay, I'm good, I'll let you get back to it. Be quick about it. If they engage in conversation, that's your cue to stick around a little bit longer and talk to them. You want to start and end meetings on time, and you want to be prepared. You don't want to be shuffling through paperwork. You don't want to be printing off onboarding packages when your caregivers are there. You have to be prepared ahead of time. And another thing is you also want to let them know when you're running behind. A lot of people don't let them know. They'll just show up 15, 20 minutes late. And that's a problem. It doesn't seem like a big problem. They're probably not going to get mad at you, but there's an internal trigger there that tells them that you're irresponsible and maybe you're disorganized. And when you're doing that, you also want to give people your undivided attention. So make sure you're actually listening to them. There's a lot of distractions nowadays. You could be thinking about something else. Make sure that you're paying attention and that you can resonate with what they have going on. So I wanted to say, if somebody's busy, some of the cues are lack of eye contact, avoiding meeting up, and just a lack of enthusiasm in the conversation. So make sure you're paying attention to that and you know when to get out of the conversation and let them get back to work. Now, I just wanted to say, don't worry if you're not up to speed with all of these techniques. I just wanted to for you to be aware of just how in-depth sales can be. There's also an infinite number of psychology techniques, and a lot of these we actually use in my agency, and the ones that work, we put in our course, Masters of Homecare. So in closing, if you want to improve your selling, read the books that I've recommended. Start implementing just one of these strategies at a time, and in no time, you're going to be the ultimate sales machine. So let's go.